Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for being here today, for joining us for the NEMSIS V3 implementation call. Today is June 12th, 2024. My name is Monet Iheanacho, and I will be our co-pilot through the agenda today. So first of all, I would like to just say again, thank you. We appreciate your attendance. We know that you're very busy. But we are going to go ahead and get started with stakeholder introductions. And so I would like to turn some time over to my colleague, John Britt, to talk about the stakeholder introduction. And then John, you can go right into your dashboard review.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. So good morning. This is one of my most favorite things to do. So as always, we'll do our stakeholder introduction. Why do we do this? Is to get to know others on the call, and build some connections that lead to collaboration, get some ideas maybe for some new hobbies, let somebody be spotlighted for 30 to 45 seconds, and to have some fun, and maybe to put some names with faces that we may see later on. So we ask what do you like to do to relax or unwind? And this person likes to go shopping at flea markets, which my family does the same, and especially yard sales. Reading and spending time with family. I don't know what genre reading. Interesting facts. Now, I did not ask this. I will never ask anybody their birthday, especially a female, if this is one. But her birthday is 7777, and she happens to have terrible luck. Other things, she worked as a cashier at the Pig. Those of you who are not from the South, the Pig is Piggly Wiggly. It's a grocery store chain. They have the best meat. How long have you been in healthcare, EMS, data? So she's worked for the health department for 10 years in the Office of Emergency Planning, and has worked as the response as a planner, but just recently transferred to the EMS acute care system. And she likes the idea of the new challenge and looks forward to learning all she can about EMS data. So any guesses? Welcome, Ms. Kelly Drum, data analyst from Mississippi State Department of Health, Office of EMS and Acute Care Systems. Welcome. If you have not been introduced, I will share a link in just a minute so that you too can fill out my super high-speed form and get introduced at the next or one of the upcoming V3 calls. And this picture was taken by one of our someone I introduced not too long ago, Sirkan Bada from Florida. And I love this picture, so I've decided to add it to all of the introductions. So with that said, now I need to share another screen. So give me 1 second. Was that up there the whole time, the sharing thing? I hate that. I'm sorry. So, Monet, can you tell me, are you seeing the NEMSIS homepage now?
Yes.
Great. So the dashboard we're going to talk about today is the current composition of the warehouse dashboard. And to get to it, you go to nemsis.org and go to View Reports, State Reports, Version 3 Dashboards. Down to the very bottom, and then go up 3 to V3 State Current Composition of the Warehouse. You click on that, and it will open it for your state. And by the magic of TV, I have it open already. So this is what you will see for your state if you're a state EMS manager. Thankfully, the state of North Carolina, my home state, agreed to let me use their data. Thank you, James. To do this review so that I didn't have to record it and try to mask data, which is extremely difficult for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience doing that. So a couple things to know with the current composition of the warehouse. It is a snapshot. It is a snapshot of what's in it today, as long as today is June 8th. So it is updated every week. It is not a live dashboard. It's updated once a week. For that data. What you look at with this will not be the same report that you see the next time it updates. So if you want to use these numbers for tracking purposes, you will have to create a report and save it yourself. And I'll show you how to do that. But the first thing you'll see is that there's 5 different things you can look for. So first thing, of course, is to change your date range, because you're not going to be interested in anything from that far back, nor is it necessarily all that valid. So typically, I like to look at quarters or 6 months to a year, but for simplicity, we will just look at this year. So we'll change this. So this gives us all the calls that are currently in the warehouse, sorted by the date that they were dispatched. Unit notified by dispatch. This is the date that the ambulance or QRV or fire truck or whatever was notified of the call. So other things. Look for the little pluses. That plus brings that down. So now we go from just 2024 to the quarters. You can hit the plus again, and it takes it to the months. You can hit the plus again, and it'll take it down to the days, but it will not, you will not be able to see anything. You'll have to download it, and I'll show you that in just a second as well. So then you hit the plus there. I hope you can see these. That opens up all of the specific agencies. So you can see that this agency, 0007909, transmitted 374 calls in January, 312 in February, blah, blah, as so on. And through June 1st through 8th, they submitted 58. So this looks like they're pretty solid. There's no drop-offs, nothing. It tells you a lot. The same. And you can look, this is for every agency. You can sort this by what field level vendor they use. So if you only want to see your agencies that use a specific one of these, you can sort it for that. If you just want to look at a specific agency, you can sort it for that as well. Or if you just want to see if data is coming in, you can change this to submission date. Now, submission date is the date that we received the call, but that call could have been run anytime within the past year. So you'll notice that typically the numbers are a little bit higher because we get more calls submitted to us than actually happened on that month or that day. So we typically in May, the first week of May, we're still getting calls from April. So that's why they show on submission date. One of the most powerful tools, and so this is just John Britt, but if I run this report, unless I otherwise specify, I always run this report for unit notified by dispatch. So what is the most powerful tools? There's a couple of them. So if you're watching something and you want to see it forever, let's say I want to track a specific agency or 2 agencies or 3. I can go down to the bottom and under view, I can create a custom view. Save it. So that the next time I open this page, I can just go down to views, select it, and it'll show me what I'm tracking. The second, what I use the most actually is the download. So choose a format to download, cross tab, download, and ta-da, gives you a nice Excel file. And I don't know about most of you, but I am much more comfortable working in Excel than I am trying to get Tableau to do what I want it to. But I also now have this data for this snapshot time period. I can save this file and it's dated for me, today's date and the time.
So John, we can't see the Excel spreadsheet. That would be great to see.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Let me see. I don't know why you can't see it. Oh, there. Can you see it now, Clay?
No, still can't see it.
Now?
You may have to share screen again, perhaps it. Oh yeah, there we go.
So this is just the data from that view. Because I had those 3 agencies selected. So we can save this. And now next week, when this updates, we can download that same view again. Oops. Are you seeing the website, the current composition of the warehouse now?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because next week, these data values will have changed, and there's no way to run this report to see what it showed the last time it updated. Remember, it's a snapshot in time. So if you want to use it to track something, you'll need to save it yourself. And again, that's typically used. Crosstab means Excel, because I guess they didn't want to pay for the word Excel. So really, that's the, and I didn't mean to do that. Oh, well, the reason why ESO, EHR selected there is because I didn't choose that. These 3 agencies evidently use all 3 of them use that. So clear that. So you may wonder what these 2 tabs do. Not the second tab really doesn't do much more than the original. You can look for the D agency 01 as opposed to the agency number. That's about the limit. That's really the only change. And then you can look at which agencies have not had an activation in the past 2 reporting periods. If you're trying to track agencies that are either not reporting or going out of business or something like that. But typically you'll stay in this tab and you'll look at a typical range and you'll download into Crosstab. The one thing I'll caution you, if you make the view, like I suggested, it does save the time period. So the next time you open it, it's only going to look through June 8th. So you'll need to change your time period to see the most current, the next one will be the 14th. So that's the highlights of the current composition of the warehouse, which is probably the report that I use the absolute most when I work with NEMSIS, and it's the first place I go when there's a question about call volumes or are we getting calls. So as always, if you have any other questions or you'd like some more one-on-one, just let me know and I will be happy to work with you. And that's all.
Thank you, John. We appreciate. Okay, thank you so much, John. We really appreciate your tour, taking us through that particular dashboard. That is definitely one of the more used dashboards. And I do want to mention that if you are a state manager, you will need to utilize your Okta account to access that particular dashboard. In fact, all of the dashboards. So if you have any trouble with your Okta account, please reach out to us and we'll get that resolved for you. Also want to welcome Kelly Drum. Thank you so much for being on the call today and for giving us an opportunity to get to take a peek into your life and your world. And we welcome you to this. It's like a family, the NEMSIS family, stakeholder family. Okay, I just want to add one additional reminder. If you have not already done so, please add your agency affiliation to your name, especially if you are a software vendor. We want to ensure that you get credit for the compliance. And so we review those lists. We are trying to make sure that each vendor gets the appropriate credit. So make sure that you have your affiliation next to your name. And if you're a state manager or from an agency, also let us know. Put your name next to, or put your agency next to your name so we can know who's on the call. All right, I want to also go ahead and turn some time over to my colleague, Jen Correa. She's going to give us a maintenance update.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great day today. The maintenance this month will be done on June 18th and 19th. So if you experience any issues during that time, you do not need to open up a help desk ticket or reach out. It's probably in regards to maintenance. And of course, outside of that time, reach out if you're having any issues. And then just a note, you will see an email go out shortly this afternoon about a compliance policy update that came out on June 10th. That was just some verbiage that was updated in regards to major software changes on page 5, and you will see that later today. So I hope everybody has a good day.
Okay, thank you so much, Jan. I appreciate that update as well. Let me go ahead and let you all see the agenda. All right, so next we have on our agenda an update from our NASEMSO liaison and your former colleague from Indiana and Kentucky, Mr. Randall Eimerman. Randall, are you on the call today?
I am. Are you able to hear me, Monet?
Yes, fantastic. Would you like to share your screen?
I don't have that many updates today, more just two quick things about a committee and some new representatives.
All right, you have the time.
All right, thank you. So the first update from the NASEMSO is formerly known as the Opioid and SUD Ad Hoc Committee that has been transitioned and is now a standing committee with a new name. That new name is Substance Misuse Assessment, Recovery, Treatment, and Surveillance, better known as the SMARTS Committee. So anyone who was formerly following the Opioid SUD Ad Hoc Committee, just be aware that that's a new name for NASEMSO and is now a standing committee. And then secondly, new representatives for the Data Managers Council. These representatives, they rotate every 2 years. Our new DMC chair, Amber Viitanen from Colorado. DMC secretary is now Peter Geisert from Oregon. And our new DMC chair-elect is Chad Pors from Kansas. And then we have the final update, just a new Great Lakes regional representative for NASEMSO, and that's David Rogers from Minnesota. Any questions on that update? I think there was something in the chat. And yes, I will add the name of the committee into the chat. Any other questions for me? That's all my updates for today.
All right, thank you so much, Randall. That is so exciting. I just love hearing all those updates about the changes within the NASEMSO leadership and the DMC Council. So congratulations to everyone who's now serving. This means we're going to have a fantastic NEMSIS meeting because I know all those folks are going to be there and keep the meeting lively, keep the discussions lively. So thank you so much for that update. All right, I would also like to go into the next topic. One of my favorite topics that I want to learn all about, interoperability, just being able to say that term and explain to people what it's about. So we're going to have our good friend and colleague, Mr. Josh Legler, give us an update on interoperability. Josh, are you ready?
Yes, Monet. Let me just share one thing here. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick reminder that the EMS Interoperability Task Force that's been meeting on a monthly basis since February of 2023 will be having its final monthly call tomorrow. That'll be 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time. It uses the same Zoom link as the call that we're on right now. And I welcome anyone to join us for this final call of the task force, a final monthly call. We may have calls in the future, but not on this monthly cadence. We've got some really important and impactful topics to cover on tomorrow's call. I've listed them here. We're going to have David Pike with us to discuss the next steps for TEFCA support for outcomes queries. David is the lead author of the TEFCA QHIN Technical Exchange Framework document, and he's going to help us figure out those next steps to make sure that if EMS agencies participate in TEFCA, they can get outcome data from hospitals after they transport patients there. We're going to talk about challenges to getting outcome data actually inserted into NEMSIS exports that go to the state and national database. Still working on fixing that little gap in things. And we've got some proposed recommendations for how to address those challenges. So we're going to review the challenges as well as the proposed recommendations and get everyone's feedback and see if we can refine those recommendations. I wanted to give you a heads up that we will probably need to have some changes to the NEMSIS standard in the e-outcome section to improve interoperability. These would be changes that would go into the version after 3.5.1. So looking a few years down the road, but now's the time to get started on figuring out what those changes will be. Those changes will have impact on vendors, and tomorrow we will discuss the types of changes kind of at a high level that will probably be needed in the e-outcomes section. Then we'll need to take time over the next year or two to really detail out those changes. But if you're kind of wanting a heads up of what's probably going to be coming down the road, then that'll be a great topic to be involved in that discussion tomorrow. And we'll wrap up with just outlining the NEMSIS tax next steps on interoperability as these monthly calls come to an end, but we have a series of deliverables that we'll be putting out to improve and support interoperability. So that's for the call tomorrow morning. And again, you can use the same link that you're on right now and join us at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. All right, see if there's anything in the chat. Okay, I'll take a look at it. Looks like I didn't have anything that I need to answer in the chat. So Monet, back to you.
Thank you, Josh. We really appreciate all the work that you're doing to keep us all informed on all of the new stuff, all the good stuff. So we thank you and appreciate you. All right, the next topic up for discussion is myself. I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so the thing I want to talk to you a little bit about today is the monthly report. And I want to show you how to find the report. So you go to View Reports, Public Reports from the NEMSIS website. And then we have a tab on this page called NEMSIS Monthly Reports. And so the last report was the May report. I pushed this out via the NEMSIS Google group, I believe right around, let's see, May 1st, or the last day of June. Sorry. Yes. So my apologies. It was May 1st that I sent this out. Now, what I wanted to show you is, first of all, we are compiling information that we think is important for you. We are wanting to be transparent in our activities to inform you of various projects that we're working on, initiatives that we're looking into, and previous activities, trainings, the VIII implementation calls, things that you may want to refer back to. One of the things that we recently had an opportunity to participate in is the Freedom House celebration. And I do want to say thank you to everyone who was able to come out to Pittsburgh, join the NASEMSO meeting, and then also to participate in the launching as well as the citywide celebration. And so this is just a short highlight of that activity and the video that was released by NASEMSO. We have that video here on this page. So if you haven't had an opportunity to look at the monthly report, please feel free to review this report at your convenience, share it with others. We also wanted to talk about some of the future projects as a result of NEMSA's participation in the DMC, some of the deliverables that we'll be working on here at the TAC. That information is included. We wanted to let you know also about the public trainings that we've done in the past, the progress that we're making with the V3 transition, and then some updates related to V3 and V3.5 data submissions. A lot of this information is basically things that you have asked for. And so we have, we're constantly updating this report, changing the format just to ensure that, you know, we provide a little variety to you. Again, there's some information about how to reset your Okta account and the new reset, the password requirement, that it is now standard for you to change your password every 60 days. And so we have the user guides and all the information you need about Okta on this page. But please feel free to reach out if you have any additional troubles with resetting the Okta account. And then we also have information about the most recent software vendor compliance testing, the information that is available on the NEMSIS website. This is helpful for states and agencies when they're looking for new vendors, if they want to ensure that a company has been, is compliant with the NEMSIS standard, what version you're on. So this information is really looked at a lot. So we're grateful to be able to keep this information updated. And then we also have some information on here about the public release data set and how you can get access to the research data set. This is the largest research data set, publicly available research data set in the nation, real time. We consider it real time. A lot of agencies have information that's 2 years old. So, you know, we're doing pretty good, and we thank you all for participating in this process. And then we also have some information about most recent research and published articles here. So this is really a compilation of the various things that we're working on, and we want to encourage you to look at this report. Okay, and I have the next topic as well. But let me see if there are any questions about the report. Did anyone add anything to the chat? Okay, sounds good. So that report is available for you. Now I want to go back to the home page, which will now take us to this beautiful image of our registration site for the NEMSIS annual meeting, which will be taking place in October. And we moved the date to accommodate the back to school schedules for a lot of families who still have young children. So first of all, here is the site, the click here to register. You want to be sure to click there if you want to get yourself registered for the annual meeting, which we highly encourage because we currently have a very nice early bird rate. So we don't want that to expire. Take advantage of the savings here, right? We want to let you know that on Tuesday, October the 22nd, we're going to have a data managers forum, a software vendor forum, and an EPC agency forum. Then Wednesday, October the 23rd, we're going to have our general session. Thursday, we're going to have a general session. We have some very nice guests, some very important guests, folks who can speak to us about topics that we're really interested in coming to the meeting. And so then we also have Friday, for a nice wrap up. We don't want to rush the conversations. We really want to have time for the state managers to have time with the software vendors and for the vendors to have time with the agency representatives. So we're trying to really make time. We've listened to your comments and we're trying to make sure that this is a meeting that you will really enjoy. So when you register for the in-person session, all you have to do is just click on that link that says in person, and then you'll follow these steps. You're going to choose which option you want here, and then you're also going to choose the pre-conference sessions that you need. If you're registering virtually, then you'll just follow the instructions that are on this page. If you run into any trouble with this registration site, please send us an email so we can resolve the issue quickly for you. I also want to mention on the registration that we have a group block rate at the Sheraton Hotel. Anyone who plans meetings know that you have to secure the conference space and ensure that it can accommodate a large number of people. So we would love for you to make your reservations at the Sheraton. I know you may have a special hotel that you preference, that you prefer to be at, but if at all possible, we would love for you to take advantage of the group rate that we have for you at the Sheraton, and the dates that they'll have those rooms available before that block rate runs out are listed here on the website as well. Okay, are there any questions about the annual meeting? Jay said, I really like the section NEMSYS research citations in the monthly report. Okay, thank you, Jay. I really appreciate that. Okay, one other thing I'm gonna mention about the annual meeting. On this page, on the main page, the landing page, we have a draft agenda for you. You can use the draft agenda and the letter to start your process if you need to request approval to attend the meeting. This draft agenda is just a high-level overview of what we are wanting to cover, but this does not mean these are the final topics. In fact, we are still working on the agendas for the data managers forum, as well as the the vendor forum. So there's going to be a lot of topics that we're going to be discussing at the meeting. I also want to mention to you that if you are wanting to do process your payment by check, here's some steps to just review. And then also this includes the refund policy. So please review this information. I hope that I can accommodate everyone who has any particular situation. If it's not covered in this document, please let us know and I'll do my best to accommodate whatever the situation is for you. And then we have some transportation options that are available on this page as well. And it would be nice if maybe, you know, several people traveling together could get one vehicle. So I know you all will manage those different details, but if you need any help, please let us know. Okay, are there any additional questions about the annual meeting or how to register or anything like that? I'm looking in the chat. You can raise your hand and you can ask to come off of mute. Okay, you can always reach us. You can simply look for this red button at the bottom of the NEMSYS, any NEMSYS page, submit a help desk ticket, and we'll be sure to address your concerns. I'm going to go back to the agenda, and at this time, I would love to turn it back to my colleague, Jen Correa. She's going to talk a little bit about the V3 implementation calls. She's calling this the topic, Let's Chat. Over to you, Jen.
Thanks, Monet. And again, I just want to say thank you for all the hard work you're putting into the annual meeting. She is an extraordinary organizer. For anyone who hasn't worked with Monet for a while, you will find that she puts on what I think is, and I thought this before I was part of the TAC, what is the best meeting of the year. She does a great job. But this topic today, what we're going to talk about is a way to facilitate discussions and concerns that are sent to the TAC that are maybe not necessarily something that TAC can resolve all by itself. So I used an analogy the other day when I was talking with one of the stakeholders about thinking about the TAC like your state DMV, right? For us, the people who issue your driver's license is called the DMV here in California, Department of Motor Vehicles. So kind of think of us along those lines, where we can test someone on their ability to be compliant with the standard. We can test someone on their ability to drive that car. And when we issue that license and we issue that compliance, we're letting you know that we have looked at everything, we've tested them, they did it behind the wheel, and they're ready to go. But looking at their behavior behind the wheel after we've issued that license, that isn't something that we can always take care of. That isn't something that the DMV, your licensing agency, right? Driver's licensing agency is for. So kind of keep that in mind while we're having the discussion. We've had some issues that have been brought up, and I'll give you just some examples. There have been some service provider agencies that may ask their vendors to make changes that aren't in line with state rules, right? Or there could be some vendors that maybe relabel a element within their software. So the state, when they're talking to their service provider, is talking about an element named, and I'm just using an example, this is not a real world example. Let's say e-disposition 27, which is the unit disposition, but the vendor relabeled it patient contact made, right? So the state's saying, no, it's unit disposition. And the service provider is saying, I don't know what element you're talking about. I don't know what field you're talking about. So those kinds of changes, or validation rules that might be put in place that make it hard to comply with, because the EMS clinician may not always know that answer, right? So a way to facilitate conversations and resolutions. I want to underline, this isn't, we're not talking about solutions for, bashing one vendor or bashing a state, or talking about, somebody's specific behavior. We're trying to actually come together as stakeholders and come up with some ideas for resolutions. So I'll give you a really good example. One thing that we're already going to implement, we get a lot of questions about validation rules and how they work and why they're set up in a certain way. And so starting with the next V3 implementation call, we're going to make a rule, and you're welcome to send them in now if you like, for validation rules that you want to talk with this group as a whole, right? So I have 2 examples that I'm bringing with me next week that have been talked about and bandied about by a couple of agencies in different states. They're not always the same state. And one of the national rules that has been brought up by states and agencies and vendors that was changed in 3.5. And so we're going to talk about those and how they've affected you, and should we make a change? Should we start considering adjustments? And just getting everyone to start talking about these things together and try to solve those issues that are out there. And sometimes it might not be something we want to talk about on the call as a whole. We might want to do another idea that was broached, which is like vendor breakout sessions or issue breakout sessions during the V3 implementation call, where we set up some breakout rooms. People can decide which breakout rooms that they're going to go to, and we have smaller conversations with smaller groups. That's another suggestion that was made, right? So there's different ways that we can do this. I would love, Chris, is it possible to allow folks to come off of mute? Do we feel like that would be an okay thing at this point in the meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, so everyone is able to unmute themselves. This is, we want this to be a conversation. We want this to be your ideas as well as our ideas on how to work with you, how to work with the stakeholders as a whole to help you basically help the systems, right? Help everything work together. Documentation is always a fun topic to talk about, and we don't want to make it any harder, and we want to help make it better. So I am happy if anyone wants to take themselves off of mute and maybe make a suggestion, have an idea.
Hey, this is Lauren from Zoll.
Hey, Lauren.
Nice, shocker, right? I was wondering if there was any kind of a validation tool that could exist so that when states are submitting data sets or schematron updates, that there would be a way to either identify similar elements or some validation, either automatic or manual, to suggest like value extensions versus an additional element. Because sometimes what we run into is if there's a custom element that's being proposed or requested, it may already exist at the national level. So some products can't handle two of the same fields, or it can be confusing, or someone may have to document it in a different place. So it's like repetitive. So something like that, like, you know, if I submit a trauma custom element where it could really just be an additional value under an existing NEMSIS element. So for testing for the 3.5 standard, then it seems like there could be something in place instead of each of the vendors trying to figure out what may work, what may not, and then offering suggestions. But then in the meantime, some have already implemented those data sets and schematrons and just haven't caught it yet because they might have not gotten support tickets, or that particular thing might not have been tested. So,
and that would be a great discussion to have here, right? That's a good thing to talk about. We do have part of that. When a schematron is submitted, there is a validation rule checker report that goes back to the state data manager or the submitter, that shows them where there might be collisions between a national and a state rule. But those don't look specifically for custom element, right? So, and that may be something we can help with. That may be something where other vendors have ideas that they're willing to share. So that would be a good topic of conversation.
Or even like matching, you know, so sometimes the data sets don't match the schematron for whatever reason. So it can be a bug or just a, you know, a typing error or something like that. So something that could catch it prior to everybody doing all of the dev work.
Yeah. So are there other ideas? We're kind of talking, and that's a great topic, but we're talking about different processes we could put in place that would allow those ideas to be discussed, right? So we could specifically talk about breakout rooms. Would breakout rooms by vendor or by issue be helpful during the V3 implementation calls? Like, is that a way that we can improve this that would allow discussions, but facilitating discussions between the states and the agencies and the vendors themselves?
Hey, Jen, this is Samantha with ESO. I think I would like to see us as a group try to tackle some of these things by issue and then see if we need to go into a breakout rooms. I find when you go to a breakout room by interest that there is a huge number of people in one breakout room, and then the rest of the breakout rooms aren't as populated, and so the conversation is harder to handle. So that would be my preference.
Okay. And then Bill, I see your hand up. Go ahead and unmute. And
yeah, Jen, thanks for bringing up this conversation. We have quite a bit of experience with this in Colorado, regarding the, you know, how the different fields are named and stuff like that, with some of the reporting we're doing, and working one-on-one with agencies. And I think we've been really successful because we just stick to what the NEMSIS name is, and we acknowledge that each individual vendor may have a different name for it or may collect it in a different way. We've learned over time, you know, how some of those vendors do it, and we can share that with the agency, but we strongly encourage the agency to reach out to the vendor, put in a ticket, and try to determine, you know, where that information needs to be collected. We don't try to, we're focusing, of course, on a small group of elements. We're not trying to do this with every element, but we're doing it with a small batch at a time. But what would really be helpful is if, you know, having access to, if a vendor has a data dictionary on how they define those or map those to the different NEMSIS elements, as well as the values that they allow as well, or, you know, having some knowledge if they limit the value list as well on some of those elements. But I think as long as we as the state stick to the NEMSIS name and that, and then encourage the agency to reach out to their vendor to see where that's collected and stuff, we've had really good success with that.
Thanks, Bill. And see, that's another idea that could be discussed and I know it just was talked about, but that's a great solution, right, to a problem others may be having. So that's what we're trying to get at. We're the TAC is trying to help facilitate when the issues come up where we can, right? And part of that is we are not the, for lack of a better word, right? We're not the police for the software vendors. We're not the police for the states. We're trying to get everyone to work together to help resolve. I'm trying to think of other ideas. We've had the breakout rooms was an idea that's been thrown out of the validation rule session.
Yeah,
Clay,
Jen, this is,
Oh,
yeah,
great.
yeah, this is great conversation. Thank you for everybody that's participated. Bill, Lauren, Samantha, that's really good, helpful information. I think one of the walkaways I'm hearing, or one of the takeaways I'm hearing out of this, Jen, is I think we probably need to have at least once a year, probably just once a year, a training on like how to do custom elements, right? How to decide to do a custom element versus an extension. We've done that in the past, and the videos available online, but I think just a live conversation with the ability to ask questions, just the turnover in state level stakeholders, right, would make that valuable. And then it would be great, I think, next week, Jen, if you're going to bring the topic of some examples of schematron rules to bake in a lot of what we've talked about here, and maybe ask what states do to kind of find conformity across their agencies. I also wanted to comment on your idea of the breakouts a little bit. That's appealing, right? I don't think it would be by topic, or the way I think about it is maybe in this meeting, there being an opportunity for states to go to vendor rooms just to touch base with people, hey, we, as a way perhaps to make more efficient, the communications that are needed between states and their vendors, right? Where you don't have to try to reach someone on the phone, cold call someone. You'll just always, the vendors all have to be here or want to be here in this meeting. So maybe this makes it more efficient to just have an opportunity for, a vendor level breakout, where if folks need to touch base with their vendor, they just always know they can do it twice a month on this call. So I don't, is that idea, and it seems like if that communication could be facilitated, it could help a lot with just the back and forth, trying to get a hold of people, trying to get conversations moving. Does that have any appeal to state representatives or to vendors, right? Just providing an opportunity to kind of increase efficiency.
Chad, you have your hand up. Did you want to, was it in regards to Clay's question or a new thought?
Both. Originally it was a new thought, and then as Clay was talking, I definitely wanted to piggyback on that. So I think there's a great idea to that, Clay, on that piece. As you were talking about that, I'm sitting here thinking that there's a huge benefit to us as the state people to kind of have the ability to meet directly with some of the vendors. And the reality is, and this is me picking on vendors, and I'm straightforward, they don't always want to talk about things when other vendors are in the room, right? Because they all have some proprietary stuff and this and that. And so that affects some of the conversation. And so I definitely think there would be a benefit if there was some time or a way that I, as a state, could say, man, I need to go over here and talk to this vendor who maybe we have a new agency, or maybe we have a few agencies and we're having issues with those agencies or whatever, that I can go talk with them and learn more about how their system functions or how we can make this work. Because there's a lot of times that we have agencies So we send them a list every month of, hey, here's all of our validation issues with you guys. And a lot of times I have agencies that I'll have email exchanges with. They're like, well, I can't make these changes in my system. And we're always referring them back to the vendor. But then some of them are like, well, I can't get a hold of them. And we obviously don't know how their systems work or what their processes are. And so I think for us, at least for me as a state person, just to have an understanding of some of the various software out there and what the expectation is from the vendor on the agency versus, what did the agency handle versus what the vendor is going to handle, and those kind of things would make it a lot easier in my communication with some of those. So I do think facilitating some type of a conversation with vendors, if it has to be separately, would be awesome on that. And then the other thing that I think, and I think we should take blames as states on this, because we all approach it differently. And it can be difficult for vendors. But one of the things that the challenges we face is, what is our expectation on our validation rules, right? So some states utilize the error process a whole lot more. And so they have records that are constantly being rejected, and that's having to be managed by both the agency, the vendor, and the state on, hey, these are being rejected. Here's why, let's fix it. We're a little bit different. We prefer warnings a whole lot more. We would rather get the data in and then let's work with you to get it corrected and updated so that you're doing that. The problem is, there is a fallacy, in my opinion, out there that if a validation rule is an error, then yes, you better get it fixed. But if it's a warning, I've had agencies tell me that their vendors have just said, well, it's a warning, so it doesn't matter. And that's not true in Kansas. In Kansas, if it's a validation rule, whether it's a warning or an error, we expect it to be answered per our schematron. We just make it a warning to kind of give you the heads up that, hey, you're missing this, let's fix it. And make that happen. And the last thing we want to do is turn all of our validation rules into error, because that's going to be a nightmare for everybody. So I think some conversation between states and vendors and NEMSIS about the expectation of errors versus warnings would be great as well, because I think there's a lot of people that feel like even NEMSIS, if it's a warning for NEMSIS, it's not a big deal. It's a warning. Oh, well, we're not going to answer it. We're just going to keep getting the warning and move on.
Okay, so one of the things I want to make sure, and thank you, Chad. Thank you very, very much. One of the things I do want to say is, if we do break these out by vendors, right, we do the breakout sessions, we would look, and we are very, very conscientious, or we try to be, about the IP that vendors may have, or about the vendors not wanting to air certain things in front of other vendors. So we would look to make sure that the vendors weren't joining other vendor rooms, right? If we separate it by vendor, we try to be as careful as we can and keep an eye on that, because that could be one of the vendor concerns with that. So I did want to point that out. And Chad, the topics that you just mentioned, that's exactly the types of conversations we want to start facilitating, is how to work with that. Clay, do you have additional thoughts on that? And then Frank's got his hand up.
Yeah, no, that was well spoken, Chad, and some great ideas. And as we were thinking about this a little bit, we were brainstorming a little bit about the idea of maybe like the last of the 2 meetings every month would have these additional, we'd save the last, 30 minutes of the call for, a vendor breakouts, and we could rotate between the field level products versus the state level products. We'll try to firm that up if we think it's a good idea, right? There's a lot of kind of details we could potentially work out through that, but it may be a good opportunity just to have a chance to meet quickly for quick questions or quick clarifications with the vendors. Frank, please.
Sure. Yeah. So I was just thinking about ways to use technology to assist in sort of making these things salient. And I certainly in my prior role, I had many instances where we received 2 state schematrons or state data set updates that conflict, sometimes even in the same week or within weeks of each other. And I do think there's a way, I mean, all of this is in a central repository in Git. I do think there's a way to validate sort of for possible conflicts. And I don't think that a possible conflict means that it's wrong, but it would be a way to make it salient so we could talk about the recent check-ins that had possible conflicts on these meetings or something like that. So that's just an idea to sort of, before it gets way off track with 30 different variants of how we're collecting this data in NEMSIS, bring it up each time one gets changed. So that's my idea.
Yeah, great thought, Frank. Yeah, and we've kicked around that idea as well, so that's great to hear that.
And that is one of the hopes behind NASEMSO's new push with their custom national custom elements that they're starting to create, right, is to try and facilitate states using the same custom element so that it does cut down on that dev time. It does cut down on clashes with the different ways states might be collecting data. So that is, hopefully that will help in that instance as well. And we have had questions about, oh, I'm sorry, I see chat. Lauren, sorry, go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, Joe had a great question. Joe, do you want to pop on and just describe it a little bit? You're representing Priority Ambulance.
Yeah, pretty clear. We're a nationwide company, and we have a couple platforms, and I'm just thinking out loud as the person that uses the product that has to report to the state through our vendor. It's just a challenge when you're going to have these breakouts, and I'm trying to follow multiple states. That's just how do I do it? And I didn't want to discredit the concept of warnings, because I've experienced some locations that actually remove points for warnings. So I just throw that out there, food for thought. Trying to be as compliant as we can to the state requirements. And that's a challenge with several states. That's all.
Yeah, good thought, Joe. That's a great point to bring up. And we'll think about how your position, the position you're in, how that might work into these like vendor breakouts. I'm not immediately seeing how that would work, but clearly the conversations, right? If we have topics on these meetings where we're talking to the whole group, right, about, for example, schematron warnings, and better understanding how to communicate their use or even clean them up somehow, that could be a larger group conversation there. So yeah, Joe, great points.
And Lauren, that kind of goes along the lines of the notes that you had in here for nice to find a way to provide some standardization about the way rules are written as far as what users see, because it can vary greatly. So that kind of echoes what we just talked about. And the initiatives such as like the opioids and the things that are driving the custom elements, Richmond agitation sedation scale is another one. We just, the NASEMSO just submitted a national custom element for that they're hoping all of the states will implement, so that you're using the same custom element across the states. So that those are great examples. And I think that's all of the chat. If I missed your chat, please feel free to send me a note that says, hey, look at this one. So I think we've heard some good ideas, Clay. I think from what I've heard is the breakout sessions could be beneficial during the V3 call for that last V3 call of the month. Maybe we need to give this a try and see how it goes. Maybe not with the last June meeting. Maybe we can try getting this organized for the last July meeting, and we could start with the receive and process vendors, maybe because that's a smaller group, and see how it goes and see if it really does help facilitate some of the conversations.
Yeah. I think that sounds good, Jen. Yeah. And if anybody has other kind of thoughts about how we could make that work well, right? Or if you're really not feeling like it's something that would be valuable, right? You have, feel free to contact either Jen or I one-on-one, right? If you have if you have comments that you don't want to share in the larger group, we're happy to entertain these. We'd like this to be efficient and effective and helpful, just to, you know, better communication means lighter workloads, right? And if we're all going to be here, maybe it's a good opportunity to have brief discussion. So we'll try to frame it up. If you have any other comments, please feel free to pass them along.
This is Karen Jacobson. Point of clarification. So if you're not going to have the call on June 20th or this breakout session on June 26th, you can't have it on July 24th because there's no meeting that day. So
Okay, so we're talking August then. That's
well, or we move the July date, Jen.
August is too late, in my opinion.
We can work on that and figure maybe we just do it the first meeting of the month instead of the second meeting of the month.
Or we do it, or we do it next call, right? We've got 2 weeks. We'll work on it, Karen, see how quickly we could kind of put it together and feel.
I just, more than anything, I just want to make sure you guys realize that you don't have a meeting that's on your agenda.
Yeah, we'll probably move that date.
Thank you for that. I am really good with missing those kinds of things.
Yeah, and many folks won't know it's a state holiday on July 24th for the state of Utah. So we're off. So okay, yeah, thanks, Karen.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a holiday for the state of Utah. So there you go. But no,
Yeah.
and we really would like to hear your ideas. And Clay brought up a good point. There may be someone on the call that's uncomfortable with sharing in this and that kind of underlines the reason we were talking about doing breakout sessions, right? Is because there are folks that have good ideas and have good thoughts that could be expressed, but they don't necessarily want to talk to all of the EMS stakeholders. In this smaller group, it would be a little bit more effective. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating in the conversation. That's what we're trying to do, is help facilitate those solutions and getting things taken care of. And Monet, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you, everyone. That was very lively conversation. And Karen, thank you so much for keeping us on our toes about the dates. You know, we're doing a live call here, and sometimes we don't always have everything totally perfect. So we really appreciate, even I made an error myself. I released the monthly report at the end of the month. So that would have been the last day of May, not May 1st, because I need time to compile everything. So thank you. You know, we're all work in progress, just trying to do the best we can. All right, friends, I want to go ahead and turn a little bit of time over to John Britt. He's going to talk a little bit about the NEMMY Awards that we will be doing at the NEMSIS annual meeting.
Hello. So I'm pinch hitting for Laurie, who is traveling. I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm doing, and then I'm going to send you a link to the form. So NEMSIS recently started a tradition of awarding a few state data managers with what we call the NEMMY Award at our annual meeting. The award is to honor state managers who've gone above and beyond to help others, are striving for excellence in their role, or have used EMS data in an exemplary way to improve patient care or save lives. This year, we would like to get recommendations from other state managers who may want to nominate their peers. Each state manager may make up to 3 recommendations. If you choose to submit a recommendation or more than one, please do so by Friday, June 28th. So that's coming up quicker than we like to think. And I just sent the form to the meeting chat. So you should be able to see it now and nominate someone who you think is worthy of being awarded. And that's it.
Okay, thank you so much for that information, John. And yes, it's so exciting to provide those awards to the state managers at the annual meeting. And maybe we'll be able to do something for vendors in the future as well, because it's pretty nice to be recognized for your work. All right, I would love to turn some time over to our NHTSA Office of EMS officials, but I don't see either of them on the call today. So we're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about the public training, the upcoming public training. Just save the date right now for Tuesday, July 9th. We push it back a week because of the holiday, and we recognize that a lot of people travel during that time. So we would love to have you available on July 9th, and we'll provide some additional information about the topic and the presenters as we get a little closer. We have about 2 weeks to get that information out. I also wanted to ask at this time if there are any open forum questions, suggestions, comments, topics for discussion. Anything additional that we should talk about that we didn't already talk about during Jen's conversation on the V3 implementation calls?
Hey, Monet, there was a question in the chat about that says, for those of us that missed the correlation ID training yesterday, is there a recording available?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. We absolutely have a page on the NEMSIS website where we make those trainings available. Let's verify if it's posted at this time with Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman, do you have an update?
Yes, it is available now on the YouTube channel and on the NEMSIS webpage.
All right, thank you so much.
Hey, Chris, could you just share screen real quickly and take us to where that is?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, it's not the most it's pretty obvious, but it could be clearer where those are listed on the website. So it's valuable just to quickly see it.
Absolutely. Give me just a moment here. Okay. And I don't know if people noticed that our good friends over at Zoom have changed the layout of this of the site. So I am learning as we're doing this. All right. Do we see the NEMSIS webpage here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So if you come to nemsis.org and then go over to calls and trainings, you will see that we have our implementation calls and the public training is the second option right here. When you click on public training sessions, you will see the latest. It will always be the latest version. Whatever the latest training was will be in this window. If you want to see a previous training, you can click on this playlist and you can scroll through all of the previous trainings we've ever had here at the NEMSIS TAC. And then if you also want to go over to our YouTube channel, you can click on here, and then when you go to the NEMSIS TAC, everything that we make available for videos is available here. So if you go to videos, it has every single thing that we've ever recorded, and we also have them in sets of playlists here. So if you want to check out what's been going on with the interoperability, the V3 calls, and our public trainings. Full tour.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thank you.
Bet.
That's helpful.
All right, that was wonderful. Thank you, Chris, for sharing that information, and thank you for the question. That was an excellent training, so please be sure to review that recording. All right, let's see. If there are no other questions at this time, I would like to just inform you that the next meeting will be on June 26th, same time, same channel. We look forward to seeing you at that time. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. This has been a great meeting, and I'm so happy to see that Karen mentioned that we were not boring this time. But anyway, we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.